Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of DefDave's 1984. I'm your host, DefDave, and on this show, we are taking a comprehensive chronological journey through what I consider to be the best year ever. It's 1984, and I am happy to share this with you. Today, we are going to turn our attention to the world of sports. Our calendar is now set to February 8th. 1984, we're looking at the sports. We're looking at the Winter Olympics that were held in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. And to help me talk about the Winter Olympics, I figured I had to get somebody from the North, at least somebody who might be into the Winter Olympics. I have brought with me to this episode very special guest. Welcome, everybody, Brad Sorensen of the Pop Culture Yearbook podcast. Brad, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. And you picked somebody that knows the cold very well.
Yeah, you're up there in Minnesota. I think my experience in Minnesota is restricted to like a half-hour layover in St. Paul, and I was on my way to Canada. I've never been outside the airport up there.
Really?
So I am been Southern my whole life, and I enjoy my my more reasonable temperatures. Although we are recording this in the middle of winter, and I'm wishing I was a little bit further south than I am at the moment. But anyway, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here. I love your show, Pop Culture Yearbook. We'll talk about that before we're done here today. But before we get started, before we get too far into this, tell me, how did you find me here in 1984? What was your time travel conveyance of choice?
Well, I kind of had two here. So I had the idea of a booth. I had a phone booth written down, but then I watched a movie the other night called Totally Killer, which is about a time travel kind of slasher comedy horror movie. And she went back in time through a photo booth. And I like that a lot. I think photo booths, they fit the time of 1984. I was in there taking some pictures and things went a little haywire. And here I am. And I'll have to figure out how to get back afterwards.
Wow, you found a magical photo booth. Okay.
Yes.
I was not aware of that one. So you said it's from a movie called
Totally Killer.
Totally Killer. Is it an 80s movie?
No, it's like 2 years old. It's on Amazon, and it's about a girl from the present day who learns about these murders that happened in her town a long time ago, 1987, what I think might be the best year ever. And she ends up going back there to try to stop the murders from happening. So most of it's set in 1987, and they do a really good job with it.
All right. Well, very good. Well, as we get started here, let me set the stage for you. February 8th was the opening day of the Winter Olympics in 1984. Since just to remind everybody, this is the first week with Karma Chameleon as the #1 song in the country. It would stay there for 3 weeks. And yesterday, on February 7th of 1984, the American space program had its first untethered spacewalk. And we did an episode on that. Just go back to last week and check that conversation out. It's a lot of fun. That's what I'm trying to do on this show is cover every aspect of the year, and that includes news headlines. And the very next day, after that untethered spacewalk, with our guys still up there in orbit, down on Earth in Yugoslavia, the Winter Olympics get started. So, Brad, what can you tell me about these Olympics and kind of set the stage for us and what the opening was like?
Well, these Olympics, as I had told you ahead of time, I have no memory of. I was 8 years old and I did not see them. But I do love the Winter Olympics, and I got totally into the Winter Olympics in 1988. So when the Calgary ones came around, I was all over that. I felt like I watched every second of that. I was obsessed with those. I remember the Battle of the Bryans, Katarina Witt, but then of course she was in 1984 as well. So it was like the first time seeing a lot of these different and cool events. And so I did not watch the 84 Olympics, but I've learned about them and I love the Winter Olympics, and I got into them in the next version.
All right. Well, very good. So you called me out there and I appreciate it. Before we got into that, I did want to ask you and kind of set the table for the viewers what your 1984 was like. How old were you? What kind of stuff were you into?
All right. Well, I was 8 years old. My birthday's in January, and so I just turned 8 at the beginning of the year. I was growing up on a farm in southwestern Minnesota in a town called Tyler, very small town. My parents were farmers. I loved 80s country music, but we also had MTV on a big satellite dish. And so I was able to watch MTV, and that's when I started getting into other music besides just what they listened to. This was the end of second, beginning of third grade. I had this huge birthday party. That's a big memory that I had because there was 10 people there and they all slept over, and we still talk about it, some of us today. Some good things happened there. There was just a lot going on. I got into politics a little bit for the first time because Walter Mondale ran for president, and he's from Minnesota. And as I'm
That's
sure
right.
everybody knows, it did not go well. But as an 8-year-old kid, I'm like, oh, wow, we have this presidential candidate running. And so we were all into that. And then we saw what happened, and we just kind of like, oh, that's enough of that one.
Well, he did get Minnesota's electoral votes. That did happen.
Yep. He won us at least. Yes.
He won Minnesota, and that might have been all.
Yeah, it was.
That is definitely a news headline from 1984, and we will cover that in time. Obviously, that took place in November, so that's going to be coming up in our season 4. So for those that don't know, if I haven't said it enough, this is a 4-year project, and what we're going to do is each season is going to cover one quarter of the year 1984. So season 1 here is going from January 1 to March 31st. And so the way that works out is that we'll get to the presidential election in our 4th and final season. But anyway, let's get back to the Olympics. So you're a little too young for this one, didn't see it live. You said you got totally into the 88 Winter Olympics. Now this is just me. I'm kind of tongue in cheek here as a Southerner, feeling like, well, somebody from Minnesota must love the Winter Olympics. I know that's not true, but do you love the Winter Olympics? Is this something you have followed through the years?
I do. Yes. I like both the Olympic Games, but I get more excited for the Winter Olympics every time. I just think they're more unique and fun. And I think probably helps it because you're kind of cold and stuck inside anyway. It's easier to watch them and feel good about just sitting around watching them. Whereas in the summer, you might have other things to do. So they've always been, ever since the 80s here, they've always been something that I really look forward to and I love to watch.
So when did you, I'm assuming you're a hockey fan. Is that fair to say?
Well, okay. So you asked that question here on my preview. I am not really.
Okay.
Didn't really get in it. So there's a pretty clear divide where I grew up. So Minnesota, obviously, state of hockey. That's what we call ourselves. But where I grew up in this small town, southern Minnesota, we didn't even have a hockey team. Like there were no hockey teams around there. We played basketball. I'm a basketball fan. That's what I grew up playing and loving. And then our town had this great basketball team when I was a kid. And so we became just basketball crazy. So I barely even ice skated as a kid. We did have a rink. What was more common was people played broom ball, which is like you're in your boots and they had brooms. And I think they didn't have a puck. You would hit a ball around instead. So for me, the winter was more about sledding, making snowmen, building forts. I lived on a farm where we'd just get enormous piles of snow. And so it was a great time and I loved it. But the one thing that wasn't really ever a part of it for me was hockey.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair. So give us the story here. Let's get into these Winter Olympics. You talk about where it's from, kind of like maybe what the political context was at the time, that kind of thing.
So what I've got here, what I learned. So Sarajevo, I had to kind of actually look that up and see, where is Sarajevo again? So Yugoslavia, which doesn't even exist anymore. Second games in a socialist country after Moscow, so twice in a row. But what was kind of cool about these games is that you didn't have all the politics that you often get.
Right.
You didn't have people opting out and boycotting. So it's kind of this happier situation than sometimes you get with the Olympics. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, because what happened was it was the 1980 Summer Olympics that the United States boycotted and did not participate in. And these are the next Olympic Games to be held since then. And so there was some, I guess, political tension, question as to like who, if everybody would, would show up, and they did. There was nobody boycotting these games. We would get the Soviet bloc boycotting the 84 Summer Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 2 consecutive Summer Olympics that had one side or the other from the Cold War not participating. But everybody, I guess, respected the Winter Olympics. Everybody wanted to play in the Winter Olympics. So,
well, and I feel like the Winter Olympics are there's like fewer events and countries too. So it just kind of gives you that more small town kind of getting along feeling is how it kind of comes across. And so this was a nice moment of unity across the globe.
I also have to wonder if like countries like Russia felt like, I don't know, they're a cold country, so maybe they felt like we're going to be better in the Winter Olympics anyway. We should make sure our guys are playing it. I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but I can kind of see the logic of that. So I know we had a few first time participants in this. Do you have that list?
As countries?
Yes.
I do not have that list.
So we had, for the first time ever, participating in the Winter Olympics, we had Egypt, the British Virgin Islands, Monaco, Puerto Rico, and Senegal. So, and there was something
Puerto
like
Rico.
Yeah, in the Winter Olympics. That's kind of like the Jamaican bobsled team.
Right, pre-Jamaica.
They should have made a movie about that. The Puerto Rican Winter Olympic team. I do wonder what that was like. Let's see. There was something like 39 or 40 events here.
39 I have.
And then, but grouped, like organized under like 9 or 10 different disciplines. So there was like 9 or 10 different like major categories. What I'd say 10 different sports. Which one of these was your favorite? Or I know you weren't watching these games live, but like in general, what are the Winter Olympics that are your favorite?
It is. I love the skiing. The downhill skiing is fun to watch. And I love to check in on the little one or the more unique ones like bobsled, which you don't see a lot. But I do like the figure skating because it's like the big one. Everybody, some of those people usually there's a lot of controversy. Like I don't love sports that are judged because it's just kind of inherent that you're going to have issues there. But I do like to watch it, and I was a big fan of Katarina Witt, as probably a lot of young boys were. And so that would be the one that I liked the most. You get some of these rivalries built in. Like I said, in '88, you had the Brian Orser, Brian Boitano, and stuff like that. So I would put figure skating first, skiing second, and then some of the other luge and bobsled would come next for me.
Okay. Yeah, this was Katarina Witt's like big debut. This was her star-making turn, I think.
Yeah, and she was only 18, I think, when I looked it up. So pretty impressive.
And of course, she was a major figure for a good while in her sport. So yeah, I feel like she kind of emerged as the darling of these games, probably kind of like Mary Lou Retton did for the Summer Olympics, right? So do you you have any stories for us or anything of interest of these games? Anything you found that you thought was notable?
Well, I thought it was interesting that they were a little afraid. So the location was a great geographic choice because all the sites were so close together. But they were really worried there wasn't going to be any snow when it was coming on. And so they had this giant snowfall, which was great for a lot of the events, but also caused a lot of issues because it was so much. So I think just the way it kind of started with like worrying about that was something that was interesting.
Huh.
But as far as the stories, so the one that I kind of looked into a little bit was Torvill, because I've heard of Torvill and Dean, the ice dancers, and it's probably the most famous thing from these games from what I've seen. And so I watched their perfect score dance. They got 12 perfect 6.0 scores, and I don't get it. Like I like figure skating. I like to watch the jumps and the figure skaters, but this ice dancing, I just don't get it. But they were beloved, and they were a big deal. So that would be the one that kind of stood out first of all, as far as kind of the story of the games.
Okay. All right. Well, when I look back at this, I don't remember watching these. I probably did at least watch some of it. I definitely remember watching the Summer Olympics. I was 13 during this year, in 7th grade. But when I look back at this, what I'm interested in is, how did the U.S. do? I want to know what happened to the United States in these games. How do they do? Do you have the medal count of where the
I
like
do.
top 3 or 4 finished? How do we do?
So only 8 medals that they won from my count, 4 gold and 4 silver, and they were fourth. Well, actually, no, fifth overall, but they're listed third because they have the third most golds. So
Hmm.
way behind East Germany and the Soviet Union, which had the most medals in these games.
Yeah, so that is something that stood out to me was the the country that won the most gold medals in these games was East Germany. And so we have
Different
East
time,
Germany winning in Yugoslavia. So two countries that no longer exist.
right?
So a very 80s Olympics here with East Germany winning in Yugoslavia.
Well, and the Soviet Union too. It's not
It,
not a thing anymore either.
there you go. Yeah. So a lot has changed. So do you remember how the U.S. hockey team did, because they won it all in 1980, as as is famous.
I didn't see where the U.S. actually finished. I know the Soviet Union won over Czechoslovakia, and Sweden and Canada played for the bronze. So not as well as 1980.
Yeah, they actually finished seventh. I don't know how much turnover there had been in the team compared to the 80 squad. I didn't study those rosters, but of course
I was wondering too if Herb Brooks was still the coach. I don't think he was, and so
he probably wasn't, but I didn't look it up, so I don't know for sure. But obviously, I would have to think that in the context, coming out of the 1980 Olympics, that this would have been a team that had the curiosity of the public. This is something that they were going to pay attention
right.
to see how they did. So
It's probably why the U.S. couldn't boycott, because they had to, send that hockey team to see if they could bring the magic back.
yeah, I would guess that I should have talked to somebody a lot older than us and asked them, like, do you remember there being any kind of particular like public demand or public, like, a thing in the popular culture, a high level of curiosity to see how this hockey team would do in the following Olympics. I don't know, but I would have to guess that was something that took place. Do you know? So like, so when I did that, I asked you what were the stories out of these games that jumped out to you, and I said on my part that I just look at how the U.S. did. So you said we got 4 gold medals.
Right.
Do you know who won those?
That I don't have. I just have the medal count.
Okay, so it appears, I'm looking at my notes right now. It appears that all of our gold came in this downhill skiing events.
Oh, and Scott Hamilton too.
Okay,
Skating.
and then Scott Hamilton. Okay, so we had Bill Johnson's downhill. We had Phil Maher in the slalom, and Debbie Armstrong in the giant slalom. So these are the 2 slalom skiers right here on the cover of Time magazine. And so I will assume that this must be Bill Johnson on the cover of, it says it right there.
It says it on there.
Okay, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So these were our standout stars. The slalom events, the downhill event, and then, as you pointed out, we also had Scott Hamilton, which was a name I had forgotten, but as soon as I read it, it all came back to me. Another prominent figure in the Olympic scene for America in the 80s.
Well, I knew him well because he's been the announcer, basically. I probably still is. I guess I don't remember, but he's been the announcer for figure skating my whole life, basically.
Is that right?
Yeah. At
So
the Olympics.
between Scott Hamilton and Katarina Witt, I think are huge names coming out of these games that I think people that were around at the time like we were probably remember. And I suppose the skiing fans out there are going to remember names like Bill Johnson and Phil Maher also. So we have those 3 skiers and Scott here to thank for representing the U.S. well, getting us those 4 gold medals. Now, how many gold medals? So I know East Germany finished first. The U.S. had 4 gold medals. How many did East Germany end up with total?
9.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So they more than doubled up on us.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Well,
we did get the silver in the women's figure skating too, was Elaine Zayak. So that was a big one for America there.
okay.
There is one other name that I recognize, and I'm not really sure like why I know him, but the first Olympic medal for Yugoslavia was in the giant slalom was Yuri Franco, and that name is very familiar to me. Um, even though he's from Yugoslavia, and I really didn't watch these particular games, but he was a national hero there. That's where it was, and that name really stands out in my memory as well. Yuri Franco.
All right. Well, very good. So, you got any other stories or memories for me?
Maybe not a story, but I was reading about the mascot. So when one of the Olympics came around, when we were in like middle school, there was a big deal about the mascots. They always have one. So this was a very popular one. It was a wolf named Vuko, Vuko the wolf. He was a friendly little wolf, considered one of the best mascots of all time. And he helped change the perception of the wolves in the region, which were seen as scary, and made them less so, as brave and lovable instead. So he was something that they liked there. And then also, kind of a funnier story, the Olympic flag was accidentally put up upside down during the opening ceremonies, which actually happened twice. It happened in Paris in 2024. So history repeated just a year or two ago.
I saw that too. Apparently, it's only happened twice ever, and one of them was like at the most recent Olympics. Like it basically just happened, but also happened here in '84. But I can cut somebody some slack for that because I mean, unless you've studied it, you might not know. But you would think that there would be somebody on the detail that day.
Yeah. You
that,
think that the
that
details would be very much figured out before
yeah,
you
there'd
get
be
there.
somebody there going, no, 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 put this side first. I don't know. So that had to have been a little bit embarrassing. Um, so I guess we're wrapping up here. It'd be kind of a short episode. Can you tell me anything about like the impact like that this had for Yugoslavia? I feel like usually when Olympics come into a city or come into a country, it it has an enormous positive economic impact, and a lot of times sites are chosen for the desire to help that area out. Do you know if that was the case here with Yugoslavia?
No, unfortunately, this less than a decade after it was over, the Bosnian War broke out. And so the city of Sarajevo was under siege. A lot of the things were used in the war and destroyed or heavily damaged. Um, Not very good story, but the podium where the medalists would stand was even used as a site for executions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it has been rebuilt. Like it took some time. A lot of the Olympic spirit is coming back. The big hall where they had the ice skating was reconstructed, and the city celebrated the 40th anniversary in 2024. So they're kind of bringing it back, but it was kind of a sad story afterwards that it didn't revitalize and keep the area going as you would have hoped.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the impact was probably positive at first, but like you're saying, when the war came in the early '90s, it did a lot to damage it.
Right.
It's been partially rebuilt. And the reason I was just showing a picture of those slopes, those downhill ramps or whatever you call those, is that that's an example of an area that they have not gone back and renovated. And there's several of these sites that have been left abandoned and are, I guess, the wilderness is reclaiming them. Um,
Hmm.
and that's sad because you would like to be able to hold on to that Olympic history, but also not have it be a stark reminder of war. Uh, but also, you know, that tells the story of
Right.
the area. I don't want to say of the country because the map has been redrawn, but of that area, the history of those people in that region, it's a part of the story. So it is unfortunate, obviously. So, Brett, if you don't have anything else for me, I guess we could wrap it up right here. You don't necessarily have to get back in your photo booth, but we might be done talking about the Olympics. Does this do anything to remind you of how much you do enjoy the Winter Olympics and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, because they're coming again here soon. So it has helped me be a little more excited about them coming back and just see. And there's so many more events now. It's so different with all the like the snowboarding and the half pipe and all these other things that they have now. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to watch them, and it was fun to look back and try to learn a little bit about this.
Awesome. Awesome. Very much. Brad, thank you so much for joining me here in 1984. I love your show. I've been on there a couple of different times, I believe.
Yes, you
Why don't
have.
you tell folks what the Pop Culture Yearbook is all about?
So we call ourselves the Pop Culture Yearbook because we like to go back in time and focus on a year for a month at a time. And we aren't really in the 70s because we didn't really know much of anything going on. So we kind of start our journey in 1980, and then we started working on the show in 2020. So kind of keep it to those 40 years. So a pretty big stretch. But we'll go to 1 year at a time, and we'll pick things that we want to like rewatch or revisit and see if we still like them. And then we talk about those things. So like when you were on, we were doing 1982, and we talked about the Dukes of Hazzard with you.
Yes.
And then you were on again. It wasn't a year. We do some other months too. That wasn't a year specifically, but you were also on for Run DMC for a great time there. So we are starting our 6th season just in February. Not sure when this is coming out, but if you are listening, our 6th season should be out. We're starting with a more recent year because it's one we haven't covered, 2015. But then I think after that, we're probably going to go back and do 1984 because I'm thinking a lot about it thanks to you. And I think that we will use that as a way to kind of plug your show as well and help try to get some cross mogination going on there. So,
Hey, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that. Dukes of Hazard. I was tempted to say that we're both guilty of stereotyping each other. I'm pulling you in just because you're from Minnesota and these are the Winter Olympics, and you're pulling me in for the Dukes of Hazard just because I'm Southern. But that is not fair to you because I
you
actually
pulled
invited
yourself
myself.
in.
That's right. I invited myself in for Dukes of Hazard. I was like, "Oh, if you're doing that, you got to have me there."
And it couldn't have worked out any better. So I'm glad you did.
And Run DMC, they got their start in 1984. Their debut album came
There you
out.
go.
I believe March 27th, and we're going to be talking about him on here. You better believe it. So,
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah. So, guys, folks out there, if you're listening to this show, you're probably a fan of 80s pop culture, and if you are, you should be listening to Pop Culture Yearbook. You probably are already, but if you're not, please go check them out. Brad and Giff got a great thing going over there. Pete's left the show. Is that right?
Well, yes, for now. He'll
Okay.
probably be back someday, but yeah, it's pretty much me and Giff now. So
Okay. All right. Well, very good. So listen, Brad, like I said, you don't have to get back in the photo booth. You don't have to.
I might want to hang out here for a little while. There's a few things I want to go see again.
If you want to go back to 2026, I mean, go ahead. I don't know why you would want to do that.
I'm going to go find a movie theater and see if 16 Candles is playing.
There you go. There you go. That will be a season 2 episode, and I'll make sure I get you back for that one. How's that sound?
That is wonderful. I would love to.
All right. All right, Brad, I'm going to get you out of here, and I will talk to you soon. All right, bud?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So, folks, that's it for this episode of DefDave's 1984. The Winter Olympics kicked off on February 8th. It would actually last all the way to February 19th. And during that stretch, we have several more episodes that are set during that time frame. A couple of days after the 8th, on the opening day here, on February 10th, wrestler David Von Erich died while in Japan getting ready to wrestle a match, part of the tragic and famous Von Erich wrestling family. He died on February 10th. In May of 84, his wrestling promotion would put on a memorial event. And I may be doing an episode on that. Let me know if that's something you want me to cover. The Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions that was held by the WCCW in May of 84. If that's something you want us to cover, we will absolutely do that. And then a few days after that, on February 13th, during the Winter Olympics, we had Love at First Sting by the Scorpions released. This was the album with Rock You Like a Hurricane on it. And I will be dedicating an episode to that. and I've got a special guest lined up for that. Listeners of the Surely Can't Be Serious podcast are probably familiar with the name James Buckley. He's a real life rock and roll drummer, and he loves the Scorpions. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. So until then, look, again, you don't have to go back to 2026 either if you don't want to. Stay with me in 1984, and I'll see you next week. 1984.